Welcome to the Beauty in Battle podcast, where we talk about winning in marriage by waging a war. I'm Jason Benham. I've got my girlfriend / wife, Tori Benham, with me, and we are here to talk to you about how Satan tries to get you to fight face to face with your spouse, but God designed you to fight shoulder to shoulder against Satan so that you can win in your marriage. Fighting together draws you together. We cannot wait to jump in. So here we go. Okay, back by popular demand, Rachel and Eric Beck.
Yay.
You know, last time I introduced you guys, I said Rachel and Eric Beck are Beck. But no, you're Beck and you're back.
We're back.
So thank you for being here. Okay, today we're talking about embracing your role in marriage. Mm-hmm. Now, this is an important one because there is this great verse, 1 Corinthians 16:13 in the New American Standard, which is a word-for-word translation. Paul is talking. He says, be on the alert, stand firm in the faith, act like men, be strong. So obviously, Paul is like, dudes should be dudes, women should be women. Now, that is very unpopular in today's culture. Right. Even the NIV doesn't say it like that. Right. So it's been stripped away. So this is a big deal, what we're talking about today. And so I'm excited about what you guys have to say, and you guys are just going to blow our hair back. I know it. I can feel it.
Rachel will.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
But before we get going, wait, we got to do a joke. Who's doing the joke? Are you doing that, Tori?
No, you guys got the joke today, right? From your son.
Go for it.
All right. So this one is from Liam, and he said, you just have to do this if you're on the podcast. So I said, okay, we'll see. Well, I can't promise, but we'll see.
Wait, did Ian give us a joke last time too?
Oh, no,
no, Liam.
Yeah, he did.
Ian, Liam.
Sorry.
Yeah, he did.
I think so.
Yeah, he can find
He's
the
a fountain
really
of
good ones.
humor.
All right. So we'll see if I can do it right. What did the janitor say when he jumped out of the closet?
What?
Supplies.
Liam,
that was great. I'm so sorry I called you Ian. It's because we're going out to eat with
you
somebody
called his
named
son
Ian.
Ian.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
That's right. You're
So,
right.
Liam, I did not forget your name.
Oh, you're talking directly to Ian.
Yes,
Liam.
because he's listening right
See,
now, and
it's
I
going
called
around.
him.
It's going around.
Tonight we'll call Ian Liam.
Yeah.
That's right.
Complete the circle.
Let's start over. Okay, so here we go. So embracing roles in marriage. Which one of you wants to kick us off?
I will.
Okay, hit it, Rachel.
I took note of how in Genesis it goes over and over to say male and female, he created them. Male and female, they created them. So the idea that we were designed with part of our essential nature expressed in two separate and complementary ways. And we have certain strengths that we are best able to express. It's like having a really good stance physically, like you have your feet firmly planted, parallel, and you're much more difficult to knock over than if your legs are askew and your weight isn't equally balanced. So there's a position of balance or power in which men and women are most grounded. Now, for women, sometimes we joke about me being the CNO, the Chief Nurturing Officer of the home. I'm the CNO. So one of my expressions that's especially good is to be a nurturer, to fertilize and like bring life and flourishing on a relational, emotional, environmental creation scope.
Yes.
And Eric mentioned in the last podcast about the king's role is boundaries and borders. So the ability to hold the container for this is what's expected, and this is where you're protected, and this is how things work best.
Wow.
So sometimes you think about the analogy of like a large pitcher. Like the male energy is like the pitcher and the female energy is like the water. And you need that container to hold the fluidity. You know, and women tend to intuit and know and flow, and it's a different type of knowledge. And men might gravitate towards like the fixed and the known. And these are complementary forces.
Yeah.
And you can't just have water flat on the pavement. It's going to evaporate.
Yeah.
You need it in the container. But an empty container that has no space, it's solid cement. There's no ability to hold the input, literally the input of the water going in, you know, isn't anything either. So together with focusing on developing the uniquely feminine and uniquely masculine qualities, there's a synergy. It's that third note that was mentioned in the previous podcast. It's like more than just what either is bringing, it's what you bring together.
That's good. What do you do if there's a woman who maybe isn't a natural nurturer.
Yeah.
So obviously you would say there's a role that you do need to play, or the man isn't the natural boundary enforcer. Mm-hmm. We've talked with several couples.
Yeah, for sure.
They struggle with that.
Sure.
What do they do?
Well, in my work with women, I found so often when women are feeling distance from their femininity, it's really a self-protection against a wound.
Wow.
So if they didn't feel protected by their father, their husband, whatever men allowed there to be a breach of boundaries in their life, they man up, literally.
Oh,
they man up
That
as
makes
a way
sense.
of protecting. And it does make perfect sense. So in order to reconnect with our femininity, it's really, really helpful to look at what am I protecting myself from? Because when you've got it all together and you're unable to receive and be in that soft, gentle space, there's a reason.
Yeah.
And it usually requires some prayer and some reflection. And when we get to those root issues, we're really able to heal those wounds and return to the softness and there's a magic in the openness of a feminine spirit that's in her essence, like her particular sweet spot. And, you can feel yourself go in and out of it in a day,
Right.
where you're more directive. And being a mom is actually a rather masculine thing because you're constantly like telling people what to do and when to do it and like reminding of the standard
Setting boundaries.
like, all day long. And if you're homeschooling and like you're doing that all the time. And so it can be a challenge to find creative ways to hold that boundary, that you are the one who needs to be the parent in that situation and enforce it. But I have found with our boys learning, how do I parent them in a way where I'm actually I'm still even helping them not feel like henpecked by the mom telling the boy what to do. I want to bring out their own masculine expression while still holding a boundary. So how to be in come at a standard from a feminine energy. All of this goes back to that root of, Father, show me where I'm acting in reaction and self-protection rather than out of my natural strength, and give me ways to empower my husband, my sons, to show up more in their masculine strength. And it's an art for sure.
Wow. That's so good. I remember there being a season in particular where, Jason, you were traveling more than normal and I had to be more of the disciplinarian. And I felt that I feel like I'm acting kind of out of my own nature because I have to be the boundary setter and the more disciplinarian while he's gone. And it was such a challenging season because everything in me wanted to be more nurturing, but it was a hard balance. And I remember you having to come home like, I really need you to
step up,
lay down the law.
Yes. I need to slip. I need to fall back into my role.
Rachel brought up a really good point. You said that oftentimes if a woman has forgotten how to be a nurturer, it's because she's wounded somewhere and she's manned up. And I remember that time for Tori. She was wounded, and we've talked about this on our podcast before. She always wanted to work with me. We always wanted to do something together. But now not only are we not working together, but I'm gone all the time, right? Trying to build this business. By God's grace, systemized it to a point where it could run itself. By the way, visit expertownership.com. You'll see me and Eric talking a lot about that. But she was having to operate out of her pain. That's such a good point. I never actually thought of that. And then it causes a woman to man up. Eric, what about the man who maybe isn't the natural boundary guy?
Yeah.
What does he do?
I think it's most men now because, I was born in the 70s, and growing up with the role models on TV and the movies, we kind of had this singular hero, Superman or Indiana Jones or something like that. And then in the 90s and the early 2000s, we started moving away from heroes being an individual to heroes being a team, the Avengers and the Marvel Comics thing. And it's all about a team now.
Yeah.
And then what's happened now is we've just kind of like lost sight of any kind of role model because any role model by its definition is now some kind of a oppression or putting something onto people. And and so what's happening is that I'll speak to the masculine side, that masculinity is thought of in so many ways that are confusing to people.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually simple. I think that when you look at what is the healthy masculine, you can look at it like Rachel was saying, like at the pitcher and the water. But I sometimes like to think about it as like the body, like the bones and the muscles. You know what I mean? It's like I can be really, really strong, but if I have really fragile bones, that strength is going to be dangerous to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
And if I am calcified and rigid, then I'm really, really, firm in that sense, but also I can't move, right? So I need the strength and I need the flexibility at the same time. And I feel like part of what we're trying to help people do is to understand if you haven't had a really good role model, if you haven't seen how a man handles this problem or how a man approaches this, then you have no roadmap. And it used to be that religion and the institutions around spirituality gave us those initiations.
Yeah.
And then it kind of became culture gave us those initiations through movies and stories and things like that. And when we see the disintegration of the ethos of a culture, then it's no surprise. I mean, if you took a puzzle and then you tore off the top of the box where the picture is, right? And you said, here's all the pieces, now try and put them together, but you can't ever look at the box top, the picture.
Yeah.
Well, no wonder people are like, well, maybe the pieces go this way.
Yeah.
Let's try to put the pieces. And it's just these bizarre, strange configurations. So I think for men in particular, it's regaining two things. Number one, it's understanding the purpose of your power. So men physically, on average, are stronger than women physically on average. And there's women who do CrossFit that could bench press me and, I look like a total, little wimp compared to them. So this is not any individual. This is more about the archetype or the role, right? And so when you look at that and you say, okay, when a man is needing to get something done and is needing to act in power, how self-aware is he of the source of the power? And I think a lot of times boy energy is, or the immature masculine energy, power comes across as loud, angry, and dominant. And then that's what we wind up saying, that's toxic masculinity. It's not toxic. It's immature masculinity. It hasn't come through the process, frankly, of being sharpened by other men.
Yeah.
Where you realize at some point, somebody's always stronger than me.
Yeah, that's right.
Somebody's always faster than me. So winning that game needs to be done early in life. And so, somebody drives by with a super loud motorcycle or and I just always think there's a little boy in that vehicle who is just crying out, do I have what it takes to be a man? And I think that that's what can damage the relationship from the masculine side is every next encounter is a boy asking the question, am I really a man? So they pound the table or slam the door or raise their voice or whatever they do because they haven't really gotten established in what is masculinity and I have it. And I love I think it's Bear Bryant, I'm not sure who said it, but when you score a touchdown, act like you've been there before and you'll be there again.
Yes.
That's man energy. That's mature masculine king energy. And that's what we see in Jesus. He certainly cracked the whip, when he was in the temple and the money changers and everything, but he also was gracious with people and was like, hey, go and sin no more. And so when you see that power under control, that real, what the real definition of meekness is, I think that a lot of us as men don't have a source to go to, to see that's how you handle that. That's what's appropriate there. And I think it is incumbent on us as men to realize that the way we use our power is different once we know we have it versus being in the headspace of, do I have it? And kind of testing it out all the time and trying to see if it will work.
So I love this talking about roles. Okay. I want to switch it for a second. Rachel, I want to start with you. Okay. So you guys just gave two of the best, forensics on what it means to embrace femininity and what it means to embrace masculinity. Rachel, so let's say Eric is not acting in his masculine role. Not that he's being feminine, but that he's not acting the man, right? And you guys speak to this so well, but maybe he's acting the boy or whatever.
That's right.
How can you, as a woman, bring out the man in him? And then let's reverse that.
Yeah. The more either partner stays in their lane, the more it encourages the other partner to inhabit theirs.
That's good.
So it's literally if I can somehow double down on being in that feminine energy, which is collaborative, it's faith-filled, It's soft. It's nurturing. It's very strong. There is an equal strength between us, but it expresses differently. So it's definitely a parity of power. But so often in our culture, you even saw it in like the fashion in the 80s. It's like the women entered the workforce and they got the big square shoulders. And you see the movies, they're all in the suits.
Yeah.
It's like in order to enter the man's world, we had to literally, we had the idea that we had to look like men.
Yeah.
But no matter how much I'm inhabiting my masculine energy, I'm never going to be able to inhabit it like Eric does, and I don't want to.
Right. So
I want to be
you don't
powerful.
wear pantsuits?
Not yet. I mean, there's some really fashionable ones I've seen, but I don't yet have one. But they're all very like they're a feminine take on a pantsuit. But so I think to double down on your particular rooting, it's like, where have you been planted? The goal isn't to try and uproot yourself and like graft yourself onto the other plant.
Right.
But it's like, how can I double down and be an example? So going more into my softness and more into that spaciousness that's not directed. It's not directive. It's faith-filled and discerning. And it's something that like literally draws virtue out. And I think if a wife approaches her husband in a way that's like, oh, I know who you really are. And I'm going to be here in loving faith and patience. And it probably won't even take 5 minutes. And you're going to feel me calibrate. And that calibration is going to be so compelling that it's just going to like just be a little nudge and be like, bring you right back.
Wow.
Oh, that's good.
It's really good.
Eric, let's reverse it.
Yeah, you got it. So one thing that Rachel does especially well in this category, and we all learn this, you don't start off knowing this. It tends to be that when somebody raises their voice, you raise your voice, right? But as we learn and we grow, like she was just talking about, she's really developed a really cool technique, which is don't tell me why. This is me to her. I don't need her to tell me why what I'm doing is wrong. I need her to tell me how what I'm doing is making her feel.
Yeah, right. That's important.
And then I will activate like you can't believe.
Yes.
I'm feeling nervous about this. I'm feeling afraid of this. I'm feeling whatever that emotion is.
Yes.
And then that just switches on all the right man instincts.
Yes.
But if it's like, this is why it was wrong, or this is why I'm so disappointed in you, it's more of a judgment energy. Then that if I'm in my better days, I can just listen and we can process together, but it's harder to get there when that angle is there. So, just expressing the feeling, I think definitely ignites the masculine in a good way. I think in the reverse, part of it is all of us have our childhood histories, and I definitely grew up as a fixer. It was my job to fix the family, fix the situation, keep things calm, so I was having to be the peacemaker and whatnot. And so everybody, I would encourage, if you haven't done any, work on your family of origin or gone back in to look at that, it's not because you were abused. And I know many of you or some of you have been that might be hearing this. It's not about that per se. It's about what did you learn to do when that situation came up? Because we all have a survival mechanism. And then the situation comes up and then we learn a certain move, like a technique. Like I'm learning this is the move I do when this is happening. I think just the self-awareness of that's what I'm going to naturally do. And to know that situation is happening now. And this is what you naturally do. To me, that's being in the spirit. Not being in the spirit is this is what's happening. And I don't know that you just hit play or I'm hitting play on this button and I'm acting out this old pattern. So that little bit of growth, that to me is that self-awareness in the moment, which is that question of, okay, Father, what are you doing here? What is actually happening here? And to not take everything at face value. I just have that little bit of separation. So I think, again, if I'm like, okay, how do I really draw out Rachel and help her reground in her feminine energy? But it is really one word. Well, I guess it's two. It's active listening. It's just really holding that space to not fix it and to not dive in. And then to ask good short questions.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, tell me more about that. And wow. And then sometimes to even ask, do you want help with this?
Before you dive into
fix.
And
just being, and then, man, this is a tough one. Don't ask that question because you heard it on the podcast.
Yeah.
Ask that question because you're genuinely okay not helping. Because if you're like, I really want to help, and you're like, so do you want help with this?
Yeah.
And then they're like, no, then you're going to have a boo-boo face and it's
Right.
going to ruin the energy of it. But if it's like, look, I can just hear you. Tell me what you need. I also feel like helping her get into the essence of her femininity is not done by asking her questions or getting her to make decisions.
Oh yeah.
So if I'm continuing to go, well, then what happened next? Or why did that happen, do you think? And what do you think we should do? I am shoving her into masculinity without realizing that.
Yeah.
I really feel like just creating that listening, that space, and being that steady, strong container, and then seeing, okay, where do we need to go with this? Because, if she feels safe and she feels heard, then she's going to ask. She's going to say, so could you help me think through this one? And then the door's open for whatever that
You
next
actually said something I want to piggyback on real quick because you said that sometimes it's really good if you want her to embrace her femininity, you need to ask her questions and you need to draw it out, but to do it in a way that doesn't push her into masculinity, right? So we're, okay, tell me more about that. Like, that's really good. And to ask how can I help you? Or like, do you want help with this? And maybe she just needs a listening ear.
Yeah.
And then I would reverse that and say to the women out there, sometimes all you need to do is be listened to. But if you don't ever give your husband an opportunity to fix it, at some point you will remove his masculinity from him.
Yes.
Yeah. You don't want, because sometimes you need to say, okay, at the end of this, I'm going to ask you to fix it. And I'm telling you, he's going to listen.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I'm not saying it always has to happen.
Yeah,
Right.
no. Yeah.
But every now and then, give him that opportunity.
It's like saying that, there's a spider over there on the wall. Well, the man is up and going to smash it.
Let's do it.
So sometimes it's really helpful, I think, for the ladies to think, am I treating my man like another woman who
Right.
I want to emote with and I want to feel it with, and no one's going to fix it. And we're going to get this massive empathy party going. It's like, hey, remember, you're talking to a guy.
Right.
So while a more mature man can hold space for that, don't forget, we don't want to use a hammer like a saw, right?
Yeah.
Like, we know what's there. And then it's a fundamental recognition of, hey, and I do want you, women can smash spiders and kill bugs. I'm not saying that, but it's like, hey, I do want you to go outside and
Right.
make sure that our house is safe right now. Like, you want to preserve that and honor that.
Yes.
But sometimes when we're emotionally under it, we kind of blank out
Right.
on the other person's role. And it's really so much about us feeling better or getting it fixed.
Right.
And it's like, hey, actually, that's not the priority. The priority is maintaining the dynamic and the depth of connection. The fixing will happen in God's time, which could be in this conversation, but it could be tomorrow, or it could be, you know what I mean? I think there's something about the maturing that starts to remove a lot of the urgency.
That's good.
So good.
know?
And I love that you guys are talking about self-awareness, because I think self-awareness is so important in marriage. What do you think has helped you guys to become self-aware? Has that been a journey you've done together? Are you asking each other's questions about your childhood? Like, how do you help each other to become more self-aware, or how did you become more self-aware individually?
You want to go first?
Yeah. Well, I think when you see what's not working
Yeah.
as a young adult and a young married couple, then it's incumbent on both parties to say, how did I contribute to that dynamic?
Yep.
And when it happens repeatedly and you're continually like veering off the road to the left, it's like, what's in my alignment that's always pulling me left? And there's always a story, and it can take a little while to get to it.
Yeah.
But that story might be, I never felt good enough, or I needed to be the fixer, or fill in the blank. We have 1,000 stories that can pull us in the ditch. But when you see what's not working, you see the role that you often play, then there is wise counsel.
Yeah.
There's journaling. There's renewing your mind. So often it could even just be a phrase that you heard as a kid
Yeah.
that became a truth for you. And it shaped a behavior that was adaptive at the time, but it's maladaptive as an adult. It's no longer serving you. It worked once on the playground, but
Yes.
it's not a pattern to repeat for 40 years.
Right.
So being willing to look at what your role is and what would be a carefully chosen response. I mean, so
Yeah.
often we double down on things that we actually didn't buy at the store. It was like an inherited, garment that never fit us,
Yeah.
but it's the only one we knew. But it's like, if you could go to the store and choose any response, what would make you feel proud? And sometimes people access this by, they didn't have a role model. Maybe they don't even they don't even know where to look for how to handle this type of situation. And if you look at your child and you think, what would I want for them? Or sometimes you literally just have to pray for wisdom to create something brand new. You never saw someone handle this one before.
Right.
And there's the qualities that the character that you're meant to embody, and you just ask for creative expressions. How could someone who's wise and concise address this situation? How would someone who's compassionate but courageous respond in this situation? And then it's a little bit of trial and error, but if your heart's in the right place, God always gives us the way.
So good.
That's good.
I love that.
I'll do a short one on this one.
Yeah.
I really feel like the path to self-awareness is going back to any of the major traumas.
Yeah.
And then asking yourself, if I'm 50, if 50-year-old Eric were in that situation watching 7-year-old Eric go through fill in the blank, what would you do in that moment? Like, did you need someone to intervene? Did you need someone to say, hey, that's not true? Did you need someone to physically protect you? And actually replaying that enough in your mind, because what happens is whenever you think about the situation, you think about it as the 7-year-old,
Right.
and all the pain, right?
That's good.
Go there as the 50-year-old, however old you are, go there as your adult self and go, what would have made that situation right? You can stop something from happening in your memory of it. It doesn't have to play out the way it did.
Right.
And we're not denying what happened,
Right.
but we're also saying it's living in me as an unresolved trauma. And then that person you may not get forgiveness. You may not be able to get an apology from them. They may not confess what they did. In other words, that loop's never going to get closed. That person could be dead now.
Yeah.
There's and you're just like, it's just this open wound. I really feel like doing that hard work of going, I'm going to go back to that situation in my mind for just a minute. I might have Rachel with me and say, I just want you, hold my hand. I'm going to say this out loud. So I'm 7 years old and this is what's happening. And then I walk in as a man and I do this and I do this. And then that little boy looks up at me and he's so happy and he feels so relieved now. And you tell the story the way you would have made it happen, as the adult version of yourself. And then what I feel like what you're doing is you're starting to understand, okay, now some of the pain is out of that. And I can see that what that 7-year-old, like she was saying, what that 7-year-old learned to do, it makes sense in that 7-year-old situation, but it doesn't make sense for a 50-year-old.
Right.
And now I start to see the difference between the damaged or the wounded, immature self, and I start to get a real glimpse of the healed, redeemed self. And this is the one I really love. And then I want to take that problem and I'm going to punch the enemy in the face with it 50 times to go, what you did to hurt me will become so much more good. And you're going to, it's in a holy way. I hope this is redeemed, right?
This is great.
You're going to pay for what you did to me because I will not transmit that to my kids. I will not do that to other people. And guess what? I know how to help people just like me because they went through, everybody has. Everybody's gone through something like that. It's like the reason I can redeem that. And, my story, of course, is that my father died when my mom was pregnant with me. It's like, it's a terrible tragedy. And it is, right? There's plenty of people who've lost parents, who've lost people. Well, I have an insight into that if I'll do the work to become self-aware and to kind of dig into the depths of that and to go, okay. And I, like Rachel said, counseling and journaling, being quiet, having some routines in your life where you're not overstimulated. There's a ton of that stuff that's really awesome. Well, I really do feel like this is also one of those key things, which is I'm going to go back and do the repair, and you get to be the hero in the story. I mean, it's really cool. The emotional feeling of
that might be one of the coolest exercises I've ever heard. You've come up with some good ones, and I think you also said, you gave me the line, "What's not transformed is transmitted."
That's right.
So being self-aware, like what Tori was talking about. That is definitely a way that we can embrace our roles. Hey, this was fantastic.
Yeah, this is so good.
Oh, I love it. Or are we going to close this out with?
Rachel, I'm going to ask you again if you have another recipe that you guys love.
I love cooking.
Do a dessert. She's so good at desserts.
Let her do what she wants.
Okay, that's
all right. I think I'm just saying what I want. Pre-considered a dinner, so we'll go with that. But
let's do that.
Okay, so we are a low gluten family. We have some gluten, but we look for great gluten-free options.
Okay.
And there's a brand that we love called Taste Republic, and it makes really, really good gluten-free pasta with amazing texture. It's
Okay.
as good as the regular stuff.
Yum. Okay.
So I get
Where can you get this?
most health food stores.
Okay.
Yeah. So we get Taste Republic pasta, and then I make a fresh pesto, which I like to make out of olive oil, lemon, little garlic. I like honey, pink salt, of course, basil.
Okay.
And I like to use either toasted pine nuts or hemp seeds
Oh, okay.
as the kind of cheese substitute.
Yes.
So I blend all that together.
You use
and
a food processor or?
Yeah, exactly. And then that's like your fresh pesto.
Okay.
And then we'll do like a nice chicken with that, like chicken strips, and like just a nice simple sauteed broccoli. You can do sun-dried tomatoes, olives, goat cheese. But it's a really delicious treat.
So healthy too. And the boys like it?
They love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're in.
We are in.
Sold.
Invite us
So
over.
excited. I love basil.
Oh, it's
I'd
so
love
good.
to try to grow it, but Jason says I have the brown thumb.
Well, we've tried a few gardens and it didn't quite work out.
I need you to believe in me.
I do believe in you. I'm so sorry. Do not do what I do. Just do what I say. Okay, so this was fantastic. Okay, so now I want to make sure that people can find you guys. Rachel, your website
Is rachelbeckwellness.com.
rachelbeckwellness.com. You talk everything a woman needs to hear about everything, right?
Yes.
I like to talk about women, about how to age well from the inside out. Lots of practical encouragement.
Yes. Such a wealth of knowledge. Please check her out. She's awesome.
That's awesome. Eric, well, you can find him at the same place where you can find me.
That's it, brother.
expertownership.com. And Eric is our CEO. He's our master coach, and he will rock your socks. If you are an entrepreneur, or you know somebody who's an entrepreneur, he can train, and our team can train you guys how to serve God, thrive in business, and create a life of impact like no other. So expertownership.com. But if you want to see his TED Talks, go to ericbeck.com.
Eric Beck speaks.
Eric Beck speaks.
There's some other Eric Beck out there.
Yeah. What a
Already got
loser.
that one. So
What a loser.
I know.
All right. Anyway.
Thank you guys so much. This has been so fun.
Our
Thank
pleasure.
you. Thank you.
Now let's go get some food.
Yeah. Let's go. We're going to go eat some sushi, I think. Let's go do it. All right. We'll see you guys next time.
See you guys.